That is what it is. Yep, yep, yep.
You definitely remember this voice. 3 simple words. That became the soundtrack for millions of childhoods in the late 80s. A voice full of innocence, full of pure joy. But there is a dark truth behind that smile. While this little girl was recording her laughter in the studio, she was terrified to go home, only to have a kitchen knife pressed against her throat. This is not a cartoon story. This is the tragic end of Judith Barsi, before her own father extinguished her light. Forever. Her career didn't start slowly. It exploded. Discovered by accident at a skating rink when she was just 5 years old, Judith's face was suddenly everywhere. From McDonald's and Jif peanut butter commercials, all the way to major movies like Jaws: The Revenge. By the age of 7, she wasn't just a child star. She was a cash machine. Picture this: an elementary school student earning $100,000 a year. It was Judith's money that bought the family their large house in West Hills, Los Angeles. But this is exactly where the problem started. Her father, Judith Barsi, was an unemployed plumber. He was a heavy drinker. He was paranoid. And worst of all, he was jealous of his own daughter. The brighter Judith shined, the darker Joseph became. He started calling his own daughter an ungrateful brat. He would break her toys right in front of her eyes just to watch her cry. A friend once witnessed Joseph grabbing Judith's kite and smashing it against a fence until it was destroyed, simply because he thought she looked too happy playing with it. But the abuse didn't stop at toys. Joseph became paranoid. He built a high iron fence around their house, not to protect his family from thieves, but to keep them in, like prisoners. Her mother, Maria, tried everything to keep the peace. She would cover Judith's bruises with makeup, just so she could go to auditions. They were living in a golden cage. The breaking point happened right before Judith had to fly to the Bahamas to film Jaws. The night before the flight, Joseph walked into the room. He took a kitchen knife, pressed it against Judith's neck, and whispered a sentence no child should ever hear. "If you decide not to come back, I will hunt you down and cut your throat." Judith went to the Bahamas the next day. She smiled for the cameras, but deep inside she knew there was a monster waiting for her back home. But the abuse wasn't just physical. It was psychological destruction. Joseph knew exactly how to hurt a child star. He attacked her self-esteem. As Judith grew older, she naturally gained a little weight, as all children do. But Joseph used this against her. He would call his own daughter a fat pig and a loser. He terrified her so much that Judith stopped growing, literally. At 10 years old, she was still the size of a 7-year-old. Her body was so flooded with stress hormones that it simply refused to grow. You might be wondering, where was Hollywood? Didn't the producers see anything? They did. And that is the most frustrating part of this story. On the set of The Land Before Time, Judith was an angel. She was professional. She memorized her lines perfectly. But the moment the cameras stopped rolling, the light would vanish from her eyes. There was one specific incident that should have been the final red flag. Judith was scheduled for a voice lesson, but she didn't want to go. She was terrified to leave the house. Why? Because earlier that morning, Joseph had thrown a heavy iron skillet at her head. It missed her by inches and smashed into the wall. When she finally arrived at the studio, she just sat there, staring at the wall, completely catatonic. She couldn't speak. She couldn't cry. She was paralyzed by fear. Her agent, Ruth Hansen, saw this. She saw the panic. She saw the stunted growth. But in the 1980s, the culture was different. Family matters were considered private. And so Judith was sent back home, right back into the lion's den. The signs of breaking, the signs of destruction were actually visible to everyone. You just had to look close enough. In the final months of her life, Judith was no longer the happy, bubbly child America saw on TV. The stress was eating her alive from the inside out. She developed a condition called trichotillomania. Under extreme anxiety, she started pulling out her own eyelashes, one by one, until her eyes were completely bald. She even started pulling out her cat's whiskers whenever she was scared. During an audition for an animated film, Judith suddenly broke down in front of the casting agents. She couldn't sing, she couldn't act. She just cried hysterically. Her spirit was already broken. The failed Escape Child Protective Services, CPS, finally got involved. This was supposed to be her salvation. Her mother, Maria, had actually prepared a secret escape plan. She had rented a hidden apartment in Los Angeles, where Joseph couldn't find them. They were days away from freedom. But in a tragic twist of fate, Maria hesitated. Why? Because Joseph threatened to burn their beautiful house down if she ever left. Maria chose to stay to save their assets and their home. A fatal decision that would cost them everything. The night of silence, Wednesday morning, July 25, 1988, a neighbor heard a loud bang echo through the quiet street. It wasn't a firework. It was a .32 caliber pistol. Inside the pink bedroom, Joseph walked in while Judith was sleeping peacefully. He didn't wake her up. He didn't say he was sorry. He simply pulled the trigger right behind her left ear. Judith Barsi died instantly. She never woke up. She never knew that the person she loved the most was the one who ended her life. The 2 days of hell, but the horror didn't end there. Joseph didn't run. He stayed in that house with the bodies of his wife and daughter for 2 full days. Just imagine that. For 48 hours he wandered around the house, drinking bottle after bottle of alcohol, stepping over the people he was supposed to protect. He even called his friends to say a cryptic goodbye. Finally, on July 27th, he poured gasoline over Judith's small body. He lit a match, and the luxury house that Judith's hard work had paid for became her own funeral pyre. The Ghost in the Theater. 4 months after the ashes of their home had turned cold, The Land Before Time was released in theaters across America. It became a massive hit. Children everywhere fell in love with Ducky, the optimistic little dinosaur, but they had no idea of the tragedy behind the screen. During the private screening for the crew, the room was filled with tears. Animators and producers wept openly. Hearing Judith's voice, so full of life, so happy, while knowing she was already buried in Forest Lawn Memorial Park, was unbearable. The final irony. There is a heartbreaking irony in her final role. Her very last movie was All Dogs Go to Heaven. In that film, she played Anne-Marie, an orphan girl who is saved and adopted by angels. In the movie, she gets her happy ending. In real life, the angels came for her far too soon. The Stone. If you visit her grave today, you won't see a list of her famous movies. You won't see how much money she made. You will only see her name, the year 1988, and a simple phrase carved into the cold stone, a phrase she gave to the world, which now serves as her eternal goodbye. Judith Barsi was a bright star, extinguished by the very person who should have fueled her light. Rest in peace, little Ducky. You are safe now. No one can hurt you anymore. Thank you for watching The Bone Library. If you suspect a child is in danger, please do not look away. Silence is the real killer. I'll see you in the next case.